Hey everybody, welcome. We're continuing our reading and analysis and overall deep dive into this wonderful book, The Art of Power. Goes a lot of information about Thomas Jefferson. Let's continue. We're on page 142. Logic, however, is rarely a big part of politics. Jefferson's foes saw an opportunity to embarrass him. Though the House of Inquiry was short-lived, the Assembly ended up commending, not condemning, Jefferson. The episode lived on in the mind of Jefferson and in the memories of his political opponents. His bitterness at the charge that he had been derelict in his duty was palpable. So, yeah, it seems to be the case, right? There was, Jefferson said, no foundation for any official aspersion. Another opportunity for Jefferson to serve as an envoy in France came in September, a further sign that Jefferson's performance as governor, while no one's finest hour, with the possible exceptions of Jewett and Martin Hemmings. Who is Martin Hemmings? Who is that? I don't know. Was not politically fatal, yet Jefferson declined the diplomatic appointment. He had, he said, taken my final leave of everything of that nature. So he denied it. He's like, hey, I don't want it. No, thank you. Have retired to my farm, my family, and books, from which I think nothing will ever more separate me. Farm, family, and books sounds like my type of person. I want the exact same thing. With this disinterested assertion of bucolic retirement, though, came a determination to stay in Virginia politics long enough to clear his name. So sort of like vindication before you can really truly exit the scene, right? A desire to leave public office with a reputation not more blotted than it has deserved will oblige me to emerge as the next session of our assembly, and perhaps to accept of a seat in it. But as I go with a single object, I shall withdraw when that shall be accomplished. Well, that's a long way to say your terms of what you're going to do before you leave. He said in September 1781 he was to stay out of office for about a year and a half, a period in which he suffered much from the pain of the rumors about his governorship. He could never totally withdraw from the world, and the world's opinion still mattered to him. Well, he's sacrificed a lot, if you think about it. Remember, he's trying to help fight against the British, and he's had children die, right? Come on. In October 1781, the Americans triumphed at Yorktown, effectively ending the war. Still captive, as were several other Jefferson slaves, Isaac Granger Jefferson witnessed the battle. There was tremendous firing, and smoke seemed like heaven and earth was coming together, he recalled. He remembered hearing the cries of the wounded. When the smoke blow off, you see the dead men laying on the ground. Wow, so that's Jefferson's slave who got to witness this battle at Yorktown. Whoa, that must have been something. We've seen that depicted in like countless films, right? But it'd be difficult to want to see that. The war was won, and to most appearances Thomas Jefferson had triumphed, his cause vindicated and victorious. A French visitor to Monticello in 1782, the Marquis du Châtelet, came away dazzled by its master. A marquis? Sounds fancy. Let me describe to you a man, not yet 40, tall, and with a mild and pleasing countenance. So just like well-mannered, well-spoken, it's like comes off in this really good way, but whose mind and understanding are ample substitutes for every exterior grace. Wow, his mind and his understanding, so his mental faculties, are enough to make up for anything he doesn't have in grace, yet he still has exterior grace. An American who, without ever having quitted his own country, is at once a musician, skilled in drawing, a geometrician, an astronomer, a natural philosopher, legislator, and statesman. Well, I like drawing. Natural philosopher, yeah. I don't want to do the math all the time, but what do you do? A senator of America who sat for 2 years in that famous Congress which brought about the Revolution. A governor of Virginia who filled this difficult station during the invasion of Arnold, of Phillips, and of Cornwallis. Oh, that's right. Benedict Arnold, Phillips, and Cornwallis. So think about that. Thomas Jefferson had these three head honchos who were just taking him to task, right, in warfare. Wow. Those are not weak enemies. A philosopher in voluntary retirement from the world and public business because he loves the world, inasmuch only as he can flatter himself with being useful to mankind. For no object had escaped Mr. Jefferson, and it seemed as if from his youth he had placed his mind, as he had done in his house, on an elevated situation, from which he might contemplate the universe. Well, that's quite a wonderful, the Marquis saying that in 1782 about Thomas Jefferson. I mean, wow, right? Imagine someone visiting you and then giving you this glowing, like, super detailed endorsement. Right, wow. Some people ask you to introduce a friend and you're like, this is my friend. And that's it, right? But look how the Marquis is doing. I mean, talk about a reference. This was how Jefferson wanted to be seen. The reality, he felt, was rather different. He believed himself a failure. Even the American victory could not take Jefferson's mind completely off his controversial final hours as governor. He told James Monroe, that one of the worst aspects of the legislative inquiry was the possibility that the public would believe that he stood arraigned for treason of the heart and not mere weakness of the head. Attacks on his service, he said, had inflicted a wound on my spirit which will only be cured by the all-healing grave. Wow, that's a direct quote. So imagine that. Something like your reputation. I mean, he's clearly troubled that he's not getting the endorsement that he feels he earned. I mean, he messed up. He owned up for it, but still. To say that it'll only be cured by when you die is quite intense. Really making it clear how chiseled in it is to his memory. He added a final note. Mr. Jefferson has added another daughter to our family. The child was named Lucy Elizabeth. Okay, so it's a daughter, Lucy Elizabeth Jefferson, after the sister who had died not long before her own birth. Patty had no more strength. There were no reserves to draw on, no means by which to rally. She has been ever since, Jefferson said, and still continues very dangerously ill. Wow, so Jefferson's wife, Patty, is constantly going through these medical battles. We have to be very thankful today. That must be very hard, man. He loves his wife, and he loves his country. He's trying to do his duty, and he's being tested through seeing the person whom he loves so much suffer with illness and with loss of children. Quite sad. Okay, now we're in chapter 14. It's titled, To Burn On Through Death. Quote, Mrs. Jefferson has at last shaken off her tormenting pains by yielding to them, and has left our friend inconsolable. Jefferson's friend Edmund Randolph to James Madison. Wow. Edmund Randolph wrote that to James Madison. Poor guy, his wife is dead now. I mean, that's a way to start off a quote. I mean, woo. Now we're going to see how he deals with it, right? We saw that he had to deal with his children going. Now we're going to see how his family is going to deal with the mother passing. Wow, he wanted to clear his name in the Virginia politics. And now he's going to have to do that while also dealing with the death of his wife. It's quite harsh.